Time to finally and completely break the radical left's corrupt education cartel. Our children are captives to unhinged Marxist educators who are pushing inappropriate sexual, racial, and political material on our children from the youngest possible age. I mean, when they're 6 years old, they're learning about things that they don't want to learn about. And they always have regrets. There's so many such regrets later on. Who did this to me? Who did this to me? At long last, every parent in America must be empowered to opt out of the indoctrination and send their child to the public, private, charter, religious, or homeschool of their choice. In addition, we will get critical race theory out of our schools, out of our military, and out of every part of the federal, state, and local government. We will also keep men out of women's sports, so politically incorrect. No, it's so sad when you look at what's happening. Men going into women's sports, and you see the records are being broken at levels that nobody ever dreamt possible. I tell the story of the swimmer. Do you want to hear me? Do you want to hear? Do you want to hear that? Does anybody want to hear that story? You know, it's very politically incorrect to talk about it because a lot of people, even on the teams, they don't want to talk about it. They get criticized because they're not politically correct. So what happens is this young lady who's a beautiful person and a great swimmer, and she was going to break the record by 1/8 of a second. She worked so hard. She worked all her life for this chance. And she looked to her left during the meet, and she saw young ladies that she was against for years since they were young. And she looked to her right, and she saw young ladies that she was against for years. But right next to her was this giant person. She looked up. He had a wingspan somewhat the size of Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain. Do you know what? Do we know Wilt? Wilt the Stilt. And she said, he's big. Anyway, she went out and she swum her heart out. She swum and she swum, but she suffered greatly. You know what happened? She got windburned from the guy going so fast by her. He burned her up because the wind was just brutal. And she didn't quite make it, but he did. He beat the record by 38 seconds. This is a woman, I think women are going to have a hard time beating their record. Or the weightlifter, 206 pounds, I want to lift. And this young lady was fantastic, very strong, very, very strong. 206, that's a lot, right? That's a lot. I don't know if I could lift 206 pounds. Could I lift, Jim, 206? He says yes. Well, that's because I think maybe, I don't know. Could lift it a little bit. But no, he goes out, and the one young woman, she's great. She's really powerful, strong. She gets up, She gets it up to here. Couldn't do it. And then this guy came out and they interviewed him before. Have you lifted before? Not too much. Oh, well, he's not very experienced. He comes out, stands over the weights. I think he broke the record by like 100 pounds. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And you know, it's very demeaning to women, honestly. It's very demeaning. So I think it's crazy. It's crazy. So I don't know. I never spoke to JD about this. I assume we're all together. I can tell you, Jim Jordan, Jim is not going to be wrestling anybody. That he wants to wrestle males. How do you think you do against a female conversion? I don't know, Jim. I'm worried about you. If she ever won, I would lose a lot of respect for you, Jim. And no teacher should ever be allowed, ever, you know this, to have anything to do with what you're doing with your child. You have to make the decisions for your child. We don't want them teaching transgender to our children without parental consent. Republican majorities will also have to move quickly to fix the rot at our federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies. Just this week, it was revealed that Igor Danchenko, I think that sounds like a slightly Russian name, the foreign national who fabricated some of the most ridiculous smears and lies in the phony Steele dossier. It was all phony. How'd you like to be me and go home and explain that one to my wife? Darling, it wasn't true. I swear it wasn't. Remember that one? With the hookers from Russia. Darling, I'd like to explain this to you. It was all phony. It was all a phony, made-up, corrupt thing by the Democrats working with a paid informant of the FBI. Remember, we were supposed to be working with Russia. It was the FBI and the Democrats that were working with Russia, and now it's all coming out. And I hope they make a big deal out of this, not sweep it under the carpet, because I think it's one of the biggest stories in 50 years. If that were a Republican instead of a Democrat, it'd be the biggest story. It would never end. In other words, the FBI was paying a Russian who made false smears to try and take down the President of the United States. This was while I was president. It was also recently revealed that the FBI went to Facebook in the weeks just before the 2020 election and told them that the Hunter Biden laptop was all Russian disinformation. Don't use it.